Hallo, goedemorgen allemaal. Welkom bij deze webinar van Stumico in samenwerking met Building Smart. Het is voor mij ook allemaal nog een beetje nieuw als voorzitter Stumico om een webinar te geven. Dus ik weet niet of jullie nu mijn scherm zien. Ik hoop het wel. Even kijken. Deze schuif ik wel even aan de kant. People can see you. Goedemorgen allemaal nogmaals. Vandaag is het onderwerp OpenCDE en API's. Wacht even. Waarom gaat hij niet door naar de volgende slide? Jawel. Nou ja, het zijn rare tijden vandaag of dit jaar. Dat merken we allemaal, maar zeker ook bij Stumico. En events die niet door kunnen gaan. En nou, gelukkig hebben we wel de webinars kunnen organiseren. En er is een paar weken terug eentje geweest, die is ook heel goed bezocht. En ja, dat was een heel interessant onderwerp van de ILS. Dat vond ik zelf in ieder geval heel interessant. We zitten bij Stumico niet stil en we zijn voornemens om in november toch ook wel weer een fysiek event te gaan organiseren. En, dat zal ook na deze webinar kun je daarvoor inschrijven, dus jullie weten het als eerst. Ik wil eigenlijk ook iedereen natuurlijk welkom heten en de leden, maar ik begrijp wel dat er ook veel niet-leden zijn. Die is speciaal welkom en ik hoop ook dat jullie na deze webinar lid gaan worden. Kijk, neem gerust een kijkje op de site. Kun je alle eerdere events ook bekijken en ook de vorige van Building Smart over de IDS, ofwel ILS. Ons mooie history van al onze events die we tot nu toe gedaan hebben. Zoals ik net al noemde, voor donderdag 26 november. We gaan naar Kuik. Hier een plaatje, ook foto van de locatie. Allemaal mooi groen. Het is helemaal coronaproof. We willen het gewoon zo graag fysiek door laten gaan. Ik denk dat iedereen het wel heeft. Dat thuiswerken, dat is leuk, maar elkaar ontmoeten is toch wel wat in de menselijke aard zit. Dus zonder tegenbericht gaat dit gewoon door. Op deze locatie zijn maar een beperkt aantal deelnemers. We kunnen niet naar 100 deelnemers. Dus daarom wees er snel bij. En voor dit event trekken we echt alles uit de kast. Want we willen gewoon weer dat dit een mega succes wordt. En een super interessant onderwerp. Industrie 4.0. Wil ik ook weer toch nog een oproep doen aan iedereen om te delen en te volgen en te doen vandaag de dag op LinkedIn. Dat is echt ons communicatieportaal voor de buitenkant en natuurlijk onze mooie website die ook wordt bijgehouden. En nog een laatste oproep. Word lid van deze leuke gezellige club. Ook altijd weer een oproep aan de leden om input te geven aan onze vereniging. De vereniging, dat zijn wij. Dat is niet alleen het bestuur. Heb je leuke ideeën? Heb je een artikeltje wat je wilt delen? Noem het maar op. Mail ons. Dan nemen we contact met je op. En als je nog een leuk thema weet voor volgend jaar, want die gaan we ook weer bedenken. Dus altijd een oproep aan de leden om actief mee te doen. Dan hoop ik dat ik nu even genoeg volgepraat heb en dat Joram het voor elkaar heeft gekregen dat er ook geluid bij de video is, want daar was hij nog even mee bezig, maar dat zal hem vast gelukt zijn. Vandaag dus een webinar over OpenCDE API's en hier zie je de sprekers, Joram Pasi en Frank Wijs. Frank zal even een korte introductie geven over de verdere presentatie en dan wil ik jullie veel kijkplezier wensen. Dus dan geef ik hem over. En Oh, hij wordt al overgegeven, geloof ik. Even kijken hoor. Hier denk ik dan... Ja, daar gebeurt al wat. We kijken nu naar Frank's scherm. Dat ziet er goed uit. Ik ga ook rustig kijken. Frank, ben je er al? We horen je nog niet.
Oh, hello guys.
Ja.
Can you hear me?
Ja, ik hoor je, Frank. I can hear you.
Very good, very good. So thanks a lot for the introduction, and thanks for having the opportunity to present to you our Open CDE initiative. So actually, the whole thing goes back that we in Oracle believe very much in open standards, which when we've been acquired 2 years ago, it was kind of a great happening that this is even a part to Oracle's DNA. And it fits perfectly to engage stronger in the Building Smart community. So that led to the fact that we became last year an SAC member. We have kicked off a couple of initiatives, like the Open CDE one, which is the topic as of today, but also the Digital Twin initiative, together with several other players, with Siemens and so forth, and ultimately the IFC data quality initiative as well. So for today, we wanted to start with a video recording because we did a very good introduction about the topic in May, and it gives a full comprehensive understanding on where we are at. We would like then to continue with an update of Yoram Kulbak from Australia and Pasi Pasiala, what happened after this. And then we are very happy to take your questions and discuss on what further ideas you have. So I would hand over to Yoram to start playing the recording. So Martin, can you help with that?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So let me just share my screen. So can everyone see my screen? You should be seeing an OpenCD API's recording. Can you see it?
It's a white screen.
Just a white screen. Yeah. No good. Okay. How is it now? Good.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So let's put it at 0 and start.
In the next 45 to 60 minutes, we give you an update about the idea behind the Open CDE API initiative and the current status. Your presenters are Yoram Kulbak, Director Development ANZ, Pasi Pasiala, co-founder and principal architect of Solibri, and myself in the role of a Senior Director for New Products, BIM and Innovation at Oracle. So what's our approach today? The session is live and not pre-recorded. We decided to have a proper mix between information and interaction. We try to deliver it in a form of a radio show. So let's have a look to the agenda first. We start with an overview, speak about the why, and then deep dive into technical details. Let's start. Mission and purpose. When speaking mission and purpose, we need to consider the relevant parties who are involved. These are clients, users, and vendors. Let's start with the most important. What do clients and users say? Scanscan. Vendors are often unwilling to build integrations between tools, especially the project management solutions used by owners, designers, and contractors. It is a critical need in our industry, and we have needed to engage third parties and spend significant resources to get this done. This is a quote what we have received in an interview in Chicago in September last year. And we hear this all the time. You may have heard it probably in your daily practice. This missing integration creates material problems and hinders further improvements in productivity. So there are many disciplines in the area which we could consider in the whole process of design, construction, and operations. Let's look at the current focus in the group and what are the main disciplines. Design authoring, validations, and CDEs. So we can see a selection of typical products on a project, right, around those slides. So this leads to typical challenges, like number one, no seamless transfer of information between tools, low automation, manual work is required. That reduces quality of the key data in the project. And finally, it leads to many sources of the truth. Let's deep dive a little bit to challenge number two, because how does it look like in a typical use case today? There are impacts on design teams. So we have the model authors on the left-hand side. They typically, if they want to share data, have to undergo up to 7 steps to upload it to a cloud solution or a common data environment. Time for admin is a lot, depending on the file size. And the same is then the case for the design manager, who has to download it with the same amount of steps. It's very time consuming. And finally, these manual processes lead to frustration and time waste because it's expected that this is changed. So it seems there is an integration dilemma. But how does it look like in a project today? On the left-hand side, we see the different applications. And on the right-hand side, the cloud vendors. Each cloud vendor might have an own API to build a connection with. From an application vendor perspective, it is difficult to choose the cloud vendors with whom to integrate, since each integration requires coding and maintenance, then it could be considered as just bespoke. So they built it to cloud vendor 1, 2, and 3. And then the next we have with others. So in projects, clients have to make a choice if they want to order bespoke connections to improve automation. This might be costly and time consuming, like in the shared example of Skanska at the beginning. So what could be a solution for that? How can we consider the motivation of the involved parties better? The OpenCDI API as a solution. We built a standardized API. Having a standardized APIs gives the motivation for application vendors to implement them, since they can use the same integration with multiple vendors. Likewise for cloud vendors. Implementing standardized APIs brings the integration with all client applications that have implemented the API. With this development, the data exchange based on these connections would ease customers' workflows substantially. Let's briefly look to 2 use cases. Use case uploading a file. As shown, there are up to 7 steps to upload a file. 4 of those steps, we believe, can be reduced. So make that really obsolete in the process, which finally leads to a reduction to 3, which results in the reduce of manual efforts on uploading documents and lots of time savings across X or N documents per documentation cycle. So let's look to the other example. An example of an automated data flow. Architects and planners send their partial IFC model to the CDE. Based on the APIs, the analysis and quality checking tools receive the models. Here, they federate models, run clash testing, quality checking, and identify issues. The issues based on the BCF flow go back to the CDE. And issues will be reviewed after in the coordination meeting and go back to the original teams. So after these examples, now you're probably interested to understand more of the technical details. I think now it's time to hand over to Yoram to go to the deep dive.
Thank you, Frank. So, where does the OpenCDE working group activity fit in the Building Smart ecosystem? As you can see, the group clearly operates in the APIs and process corners. We also believe that we play a role in the common and integration layer in the center. The following slides present the group's guiding principles, work process, and technology. But before discussing those, there's an obvious question we need to answer. Who is the OpenCDE working group? BCF XML, the first standard owned by the group, started its journey in 2008 and culminated with BCF XML 1.2, which was released in 2011. The group, in its current form, has gathered around BCF API. We have been working together since 2014. And the group is composed of many companies, as you can see on the slide. And we apologize if we forgot to mention anyone. But more important than the companies are the people. So who have been working together for many years, who come from different companies, who are all united by the passion to move the industry's interoperability forward using open standards. And over the years, we had some success, and we also had some failures from which we've learned. And that learning is summarized in our principles, which guide our work. So the first principle is that we develop focused APIs, each addressing a specific domain workflow. Our methodology is geared toward adoption. Adoption is the key metric that we want to measure ourselves by. And we aim to build focused APIs that are small and target a specific domain so that each API solves its own set of use cases. Small and focused APIs are easier to implement. They also invite point solutions and smaller vendors to adopt. The APIs work in conjunction and share a similar look and feel. With the APIs being small, they must still work well together. It should be possible to combine several APIs together to fulfill more complex use cases. Vendors should be able to leverage the effort invested in implementing the first API when implementing the next. We believe that software comes first and the specification comes after. We learned that no specification can be declared ready before it was implemented. When prototypes are implemented by various vendors, problems are found and the specification is refined. Only when the learning through iterating software implementations has advanced can we proceed to finalize a specification draft. We believe that we have to put the specifications before they're finalized in front of users to get feedback. A working specification does not necessarily address the targeted use cases. Only after users on real-world projects have used the software and have given their feedback can we have the confidence that the standard serves its purpose. We want to reduce barriers to adoption. As mentioned, as already mentioned, adoption is the key metric for us. And when we specify, we aim to give vendors every reason to implement the specification. So making the standard small obviously goes toward that because the vendors don't have to put all the effort up front. We also make sure, in line with the Building Smart Code of Conduct, that we remain vendor neutral and that no vendor dictates their operating model or their corner cases into the specification. Finally, we strive to understand the various business and market conditions and avoid, as much as we can, specifying requirements that can go against vendors' business and market interests, and by that stifle adoption. Last but not least, we are open for everyone and all markets to join and influence. So how are we organized? The meetings are fortnightly, Mondays 11 a.m. European time, and you can find them on the Building Smart event calendar. We have hackathons twice a year. Some of the photos I presented are from those hackathons. And in these hackathons, we typically concentrate the development of the standards and iterate over our implementations towards better understanding of the weak points in the spec and improving the specification. We also have focus group, which as of late become the main place where we actually do the work to discuss and standardize, as the fortnightly meetings have a lot of participants and are harder to get focused discussion and progress through. You can use the following resources to access our work. So our work is published on GitHub, and there's also a fairly new website in the Building Smart site, which is still under construction. And there is a group mailbox to which you can email and let us know anything, any question or concern. Something that is important to say is that when you encounter an issue or when you have a feature request or anything that you want to discuss with any standard that the group is working on, you should submit them as issues on GitHub. And then it is highly preferable that you attend a fortnightly meeting to present and discuss your issue. If there is any reason why you can't attend, for example, time zone difference or clash in your calendar, then you can always, again, use the group mailbox to coordinate so that your issue doesn't get lost or forgotten. The links below can be used to basically start your exploration if you want to see more about what the group is doing. So what is our development process? How do we actually go and develop a standard? So first there comes the idea. And after there is an idea, we validate it and we focus our development by discussing repeatedly the use cases and focusing on what problems we actually want to solve. Once we have an agreement on a basic set of use cases, we proceed with a quick protocol specification that allows us to, as much as possible, serve those use cases, but more importantly, move towards an implementation of prototypes by various vendors. These implementations are critical because they are the only key tool we have to validate this initial and probably broken specification. Once we integrate the prototypes, we verify whether the integration is successful. And this leads to multiple cycles of refining the specification and the implementations until we're happy enough that it can be tested with users, which then requires the users to validate and go again through cycles of improvement until we're ready to finalize the documentation and release a standard. What are the technical pillars we rely on? So most of our APIs are REST-JSON, and we use OAuth 2.0 for authentication. XML is used for the legacy BCF file exchange. We use OpenAPI to specify the more recent Documents API or Swagger. We use Swagger for that. And HateOAS to follow links and allow the APIs to be well connected. Our approach is minimalistic, which means that we strive to create the simplest specification that meets the use cases. And we strive and we insist on being IFC compatible as much as we can. And also, that doesn't mean that we necessarily cover the IFC spec when we specify. Any concept, though, that exists in IFC we make it consistent with IFC. Where does the team's approach fit into Building Smart's technology spectrum? Clearly, we are very much on the generic, scalable, and higher adoption end. And in the next slide, I'm going to discuss our thoughts around how we join forces and work together with other groups and introduce our views for that. So of specific importance is coordinating our activity with those of the CEN 442 working groups. Our activity overlaps with a number of groups there. So there's working group 2, which is APIs, working group 3 called OpenCDE, and the final working group 4, which is for product data templates. We are already in frequent discussions with those groups. I think that Geoffrey Moore's Crossing the Chasm technology lifecycle paradigm is a good way to explain how we see the relationship between our groups. In his book, Geoffrey Moore explains how every innovation has a similar lifecycle. And where in early stages, there's people and companies that are happy to take a half-baked standard and test it and improve it and tolerate flaws. There is a chasm that separates them. The chasm separates them from the early majority, late majority, and laggards that insist on the standard being watertight, working out of the box, and have no problems. So there's the 50% that are idealists and the most of the market that expects things just to work. We see that there's a minimum viable product towards the innovative side and an industry best practice, which is mostly aligned with CEN and the ISO standards towards the right, towards the 85%, which is the market majority. We think that the CEN TC442 group and standards such as IFC and perhaps BCF 2.1 and maybe future 2x versions of BCF are ready to, IFC is definitely there already, but BCF perhaps is ready to become an industry best practice. And that's the reason why BCF would soon be submitted to consideration for an ISO standard. However, our group operates mainly in this early area. And mainly the standards we work on are new, innovative, and sometimes not necessarily able to cross this chasm between an idea and a working industry best practice. Hand over to you, Pasi.
Thank you, Yoram. So I'll briefly go through BCF. That's something that is actually already working. So IFC is used for exchanging BIM models successfully, actually. But of course, the model authors sometimes make mistakes, and mistakes are found out, for example, in coordination tools. So BCF is a way to talk about those issues. So a BCF topic has information such as description, who is of the involved components, the viewpoint, snapshot that can be viewed in the authoring tool directly, so it's easy for the authors to fix the problems. The BCF XML is file-based, like IFC also mainly is, and that is actually quite difficult to coordinate between multiple parties. So to overcome that, the group developed this BCF API for exchange the BCF information with the CDE that holds the ultimate source of one source of truth. And as you may have noticed, the BCF XML or BCF API actually are not concerned how the different authoring tools get the IFC files. So we recognized this problem in the group and then started working on the OpenCDE APIs. So the roadmap that we are having is the following. First, we have identified that in the BCF API that we developed, there is a part that is very generic and that can be used in various API standards. This part deals with authentication and authorization, and so we are separating that to a foundation standard, and then we would release a BCF version that no more has that foundation part dealing with authentication. And the next thing we are working on is documents API, how to access documents in a standard way in the CDE solutions. We are also discussing how to synchronize without user interaction documents between different servers, and then we are also going more to a smaller granularity to exchange data related to components. So the first thing there we are discussing is how to exchange properties, get property values, add more properties to components in a BIM file. So the roadmap, first thing or the next thing that we would be releasing is the foundations that we would separate from BCF 2.1 with some minor improvements so that it can be used for other APIs as well. And then we would have a BCF 2.2 that is consistent with the Foundations API, have some bug fixes. And the next thing, somewhere early next year, OpenCDE Documents API, the interactive flow that it has user in the loop. And later on, the non-interactive flow, property exchange API, and future versions of BCF. Now we could show a quick video about the proof of concept for the OpenCDE. So, Ra, if you can show the video.
Hi, and welcome to the OpenCDE API presentation. In this video, you'll be presented a brand new initiative to ensure lossless data exchange between all disciplines across the entire life cycle of a building. You'll see Oracle's Aconex, Solibri, and Archicad in action, demonstrating a proof of concept prototype that is not yet available for commercial use. Please note that other Building Smart members are also most welcome to participate in this development initiative. Managing models during design coordination can be time-consuming and lead to multiple versions of the truth. Now with the CDE API, you can enable faster process and reduce cycle times. To start, let's look at the direct connection from the authoring tool to the CDE. In Archicad, a model author is ready to publish an updated version of the model. They can choose to connect to Aconex and log in. Now the model updates can be seamlessly published. With a click of a button, the model is published to Aconex. Inside the CDE, the model version is available to be accessed and viewed on the project. With all the model versions ready for coordination, an analysis tool can easily access all the models. In Solibri, the models are downloaded directly from Aconex. The quality checks are then run to automatically validate and identify the results that need to be addressed. For this coordination cycle, the high priority results are raised as BCF issues. Now the BCF issues are raised, these design issues need to be distributed amongst the design team for resolution. From Solibri, the design issues are directly pushed to Aconex, with the correct assignees being notified that they have a task to action. The design issues are now available in the CDE to view, navigate, update, and report on. The issues are also available and ready to be resolved directly in the authoring tool. In Archicad, the same issues are viewed and the model author can be taken to the exact location with a single click. The design issues are resolved and the issues updated directly within Archicad with any additional comments. At this point, the entire design team is aware of the progress of the coordination. To complete the coordination cycle, the updated models are reviewed in Solibri to ensure the checks are now resolved. With the CDE API, projects can seamlessly manage the flow of models during coordination. To find out more, join the working group, meeting every second Monday.
All right, thanks, Ralph. So next, we are listing some challenges that we have. So we'd like to get more users to join us and give feedback. Like, we don't believe in standards that haven't been tested. So that would improve our quality. And also we would like to have vendors who want actually to implement what we are proposing and of course give feedback as well. So it's easy to get people to talk, but actually to get people implement, that's a harder thing because it requires investments from different companies. Okay, so next to Yoram, where we go through more details.
Okay, thank you, Pasi. So in the next slide, I will present some of the work which is currently in progress, what the group is doing. First comes the Foundation API, which we mentioned already. It serves a number of the principles we presented earlier. It creates a common look and feel. It allows vendors to leverage the investment in building the first API towards the second and the third API that they implement, and creates the consistency that allows APIs to be combined towards different use cases. So what concerns are managed by the Foundation API? Authentication is an obvious concern that is of a need for any type of API. Getting user information, finding out which different APIs are supported and what versions are supported, error responses and their format, and also authorization information. The Foundation API also addresses conventions for additional request and response properties where vendors want to add information beyond what is specified, caching, different request types, including JavaScript applications, HTTP codes, date and time formats, and how you manage file uploads. In the next slide, I will present an interactive documents API flow. An interactive flow includes people, unlike a non-interactive flow, which is server-to-server communication. In this flow, what we have a model author that is going to be using a few of the APIs to push updates to a model server, and we'll have a BIM coordinator that would be getting those updates and publishing test results, quality check results. So when a model author first wants to publish a model or a document into a model server, then the very first thing they need to do is to authenticate. And as people well know, OAuth dictates that they would be directed to the model server's authentication interface and enter their credentials without anyone being able to observe them, and then directed back to the authoring tool. Next, when they want to upload documents, then we took the same approach. We decided that it would be best if the model author would be directed to the interface of the model and the document server, so that we can cater for as many different paradigms and make it as easy as possible for vendors to implement, because they can use their existing interfaces and existing methodology of entering metadata and then sharing the document. When the author is done, then the model server would provide the authoring tool with an opaque payload, something that captures all the information that was entered by the model author. And then the tool can send the files and the metadata to be published further. At this point, the BIM coordinator enters. They would authenticate, as we already described, and now they would need to download the documents or the models and to run the checks. This can be achieved in a very similar fashion. They can be directed to the user interface of the model and document server. They can search, find what they're after, and select it. Once they selected the documents, that information is communicated back to the authoring tool, and the documents are downloaded. Checks are run, and BCF issues are created and communicated back, which are then synchronized by the model author, and the problems are fixed, and the model is then updated, and also the issues are marked as fixed, which in turn hands over to the BIM coordinator to download the updates, to sync the issues, to run the checks again, and to mark the issues as closed. So what are we actually seeing here? So quite clearly, the authentication belongs to the foundation that we've just discussed. But also, we see the BCF API, which is already a standard in action. And we can see how it can work well in tandem with the Documents API, which is currently being specified. Over to you, Pasi.
I was muted. So, present the Property Exchange API, or how to set the property values or query property values. So, the idea of the Property Exchange API is that there is a need for third parties to add additional property values to BIM content that resides in the CDE. Not necessarily these property values need to be like merged to the IFC file of the IFC content. They can just reside next to the IFC and revert at the content with GUIs. The API is for getting the property set template. So this would like list the potential or property values for the component, reading the property sets and updating the property sets. And of course, also we need to have like access who can update or who can read the property sets. we have identified many use cases for this, and I present here 3. So this fire rating, set fire rating for components, this is something that we have actually discussed in the group for many years. So there is a third party that sets the fire rating requirements for doors and walls and windows, and then the actual fire rating that these components will have is assigned by the designer or the architect. The user who is setting the fire rating may not be using an authoring tool, just some simple view or something that actually is not changing the as if file, but just setting the property values. Another use case that we got from Trimble Connect that already has like a native API for doing this thing is this casting place readiness application. So there is somebody at the site who is using a mobile tool to report on the readiness of the casting place component. So that person examines the formwork and rebars, and then reports the findings in the property sets. And then there is another person who will actually initiate the pouring of concrete based on this information. Third use case is setting of requirements such as temperature requirements or number of electric outlets to roof. So this would be, for example, DeRopus that is used for setting these requirements for the spaces. All right, so now back to Frank.
So we are very excited about this initiative, and we want to make it a great success. We want to make it a great success for clients and users, for our companies we are all working with, who are involved in the group, and the international build and asset community, including Building Smart International. Therefore, we would like to gain more expertise and commitment to the project. We invite more clients like Lend-Lease, the BCA, because we want to do the right things. We invite more users to join because we want to do the things right. And we invite more vendors to join because we want to deliver practice-oriented outcomes. So if you are interested, please contact us under opencde@buildingsmart.org. And we hope you have also enjoyed the session, and we are open to questions or remarks, hints from now on. Thank you.
Okay, so thanks everyone. I stop presenting and guess over to you, Paul. Maybe there's questions.
Yeah. So I think that was the overview we wanted to give to all of you about the comprehensive story. Yeah, like why, what the hell, and how does that translate even into the detailed technology. Since then, we made some progress through several working sessions, and eventually it would be good for you, Yoram, quickly to just give an update on what happened after this session we did in May.
Sure. So I can share my screen again. Just give me a minute here.
Hello everyone, this is Martin. If anyone has any questions, put them in the questions box. so we can in the end answer those questions public. Thank you very much.
I have some technical issues. It'll take me another minute.
Okay, no worries. First questions are coming. More questions, please.
Okay, so
Okay.
there was one.
Yeah, there it is.
Okay, Aaron, you got your things working.
I'm not sure whether you can see it, so let me,
No, it's still widescreen.
Just-
Not yet.
why? Let me try again. Okay, this is better, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. So we can go either way. I can let me run quickly through it so everyone is more up to date. Maybe it would answer a few questions. So
Aaron,
I'll quickly. Yeah.
Sorry, there is one question regarding the. Can you please explain the exact use of the last part of the presentation regarding P-sets? So yeah, okay, so exact use. So I think there are several use cases. So there was this concrete cast in place concrete example. So somebody is at the site monitoring or checking whether the formwork is ready, and then when it is ready, then they are like filling in this information that basically like a checklist, and then that information is a property set that is related to that say assembly, and then the site people then can start pouring the concrete. So that was one example. So I don't know, maybe there is something that is still unclear. Maybe you can give a further question. What is exactly that you didn't understand, or is there something, a use case that you think that we should have in addition to this? Okay, is the data written to the IFC? That is depending on the implementation. So we are just providing the API is like sending the property sets to the CDE, and the CDE themselves, it depends on how they handle what is their strategy to handling this information. So they can have it like next to the IFC, and then also they can also merge it with the IFC. So it depends. Like some authoring, so CDEs consider that the IFC is like immutable, so you cannot make changes to it in the CDE. And then some others could think that they can actually merge it. Somebody says it's a great initiative, so that's good to hear. I would also like to see if there is somebody who would have further use cases to this, so please send them our way. Okay. Joram, let's start.
Thank you. So yeah, so maybe just about writing an IFC. So I think in most cases, and I know Trimble Connect is doing that, and I think Aconex will do the same, we will typically not modify any information that was uploaded to a web platform or a CDE, but we would likely allow exporting a new IFC with that information, right? So that would generally be the idea of how properties would be consumed. So you can, I think in most cases, that's how it would work. maybe there's platform that also embed that in models, but yeah, I think platforms like Trimble and NConnect, that's what they would do. So I'll just switch to my browser view. Hopefully I can find it with all the screens. So I actually can't see it clearly. So if anything I say it doesn't make sense, it's because some part of my screen is obstructed. So since then, we've made obviously some work and a little progress. So this is an update. I gave it, it was last week, I think exactly a week ago in the ISG. And I'll just go quickly through it. I'm not going to go into much detail, but feel free to stop me, ask questions. Basil, like, just tell me if you see anything. So we want to release BCF 2.2. In BCF 2.2, there's not many big changes, but for users, the highlights are that it would be easier to correlate between topics that are on the server to topics on clients. So the topic numbers or the topic identifiers on the server would be visible on the clients. And there's going to be a more or a better way to associate models and topics so that the servers don't need to necessarily guess and get it wrong sometimes. And we want to make the viewpoint exchanges more reliable and more streamlined. Also for implementers, then I think for BCF XML, we've made quite a few cleanups and we've made the test cases better. And we want to continue with this open API specification, which works well for developers. And we've made a lot of tiny but important documentation improvements, which hopefully would make the lives better for vendors. So this is all detailed on GitHub. I'm not going to go into that, it takes time. But these are the highlights, and this is obviously still pending implementation and testing. I'll provide timelines at the end of this presentation. Now, for Foundation, we already discussed it just now. I'm not going to repeat, nothing new to present here. In the Documents API, well, we have like two parts to the Documents API. The part that you've seen in the presentation is a part that shows what we call an interactive flow, where there's people driving applications that connect to a CDE or a web server. And this is quite well understood. We have a draft spec. We have a few draft implementations, and we need more implementations and testing. But not less important, there is also the non-interactive flow, which basically allows servers to connect and sync. A classic example would be syncing, systems that are managed within an organization, that what is called in the ISO standard work in progress, with a cloud collaboration system for the project. So in this case, we have a dedicated focus group for that. They're currently gathering requirements and agreeing on purpose before going for a user survey. So this is not as far advanced as the interactive flow. So we think that the release of this interactive Documents API is towards the second half of 2021. Now, we just discussed the property exchange. So the status there is that we have use cases, and we've had quite a few meetings and quite a few discussions. And the direction we've decided to go forward with is combine the RESTful API semantics that currently exist in Trimble Connect with a very expressly cut down, so meaning not the full product data standard from the SAN TC 422 group, but a cut down version that would include the exact subset that is required for this exchange. Did I just lose my browser? No, it's here. So this is something we have to test, especially because the product data sheet standard is quite vast, and we haven't got an opportunity yet to actually see how it looks like. So we have to create an API draft. But because we want to do release BCF, and we want to release the Documents API and the Foundations API before this is on the back burner. So I wouldn't expect a lot of progress very soon. Now, we do have a virtual hackathon. It's going to be in November, 8 a.m., 11 a.m. CET each day. The goals for the hackathon are to finalize BCF 2.2, finalize Foundations, and we want to progress property exchange if time allows. Now, some people might think, okay, I need to show up there, like people that listening to us right now, you might think, well, if I want to influence, I need to be there in November. Well, actually, you need to join the meetings a lot earlier because we are finalizing the scope right now. By November, we should have implementation. And it would be a lot better if you have anything to propose or to suggest or to criticize that you do it now and not later. So this is the roadmap slide. You've just seen it, so it's quite convenient. So we are not fully, let's say, as far as we are, as far as we wanted to be at this point. But we have a clear goal of finalizing basically by the end of this year what we aim to do at the end of this year, which is BCF 2.2 and the foundations. And I feel quite confident that we can reach it. Like, I think the group has quite a good focus now to get that out. And then since we realized that we make most progress leading to and then during the hackathons, then I think realistically the next time we're going to release it's going to be documents probably. Maybe there's going to be BCF 2.3. We just started discussing that. And there's going to be an increment for foundation. Maybe the foundation increment is going to be mostly around actually bringing in some recent or not so recent, but OAuth standards that would allow us to be less bespoke and more generic on how authentication is done. And property exchange, as we said, it would progress if time allows and if people have energy to progress it. That's it.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. This is Martin again, and hey guys, I would really thank you a lot for this presentation. I look at the time; it's already over 10 o'clock, and people, the attendants are leaving, but we still have some people here. We don't have time for questions anymore. Too bad. There were some good questions. I think we can still answer those questions for the people and give them the feedback they want. Is there any last thing from the presenters that you want to say before I close the webinar?
Well, I would just say come on board and help making this more real for the industry. We still need more companies and who are really engaging actively, yeah, not participating only. I mean like also what we see from Solibri, from Graphisoft and Trimble Connect, which are fantastic examples to really contribute to it and working to it. So we are inviting more to really jump on it, and also whoever wants to help in turn that in proper use cases, because as Yoram has said, we want to deliver something which is usable for the market and not for academic purposes. That's also a parallel stream which is more than welcome. So that would be my last 5 cents.
Yeah, and they can contact you with the CDE. What was the email address? Okay.
Yeah.
OpenCDE at was the email address. Can you say it again?
Did you put that in the chat?
Yeah, okay. People, thank you very much. And for me, it was really interesting. And I'll get in touch with you for maybe a use case. Let's keep in touch.
Thanks.
Bedankt voor het kijken. Tot de volgende keer. Doei.
Ah, so it's just us?
Yes, so let's leave.
Okay.
Is it private now?
I think it's good.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.